Why Berlin? This is the age-old question everyone's asked me every time I mention which city I'm currently based in. Well, in fact, I've actually been living in Berlin for more than 3 years now, and in today's video, I want to tell you the reasons why I decided to do that and what I am doing in the capital city of Germany. If you're new here, hi, I'm Abby. I'm an artist, author, and content creator originally from Manila, Philippines. Now I'm living and working as an artist here in Berlin, Germany. I also have been traveling a lot and teaching workshops and doing both. And a lot of my creative practice is centered around documenting your life in travels, aka journaling, which you'll find here on my YouTube channel. So today we want to touch on the topic of why I decided to live and work as an artist in Berlin. So make sure to keep watching to know more. Before we talk about Berlin, let me give you some context. So I grew up as a Filipino Chinese, 𝚒𝚘𝚘𝚘 as we call it in the Philippines, and I was raised in Manila, Philippines, which is a country in Southeast Asia, very famous for its beaches, really good food, and really warm people. So I worked as a freelance artist slash designer slash author slash shop owner. I did so many creative things for the 7 years that I started my creative career there. In my culture, being an artist wasn't actually accepted. So a lot of things that I did in my 20s were really like forging the path to becoming where I am now. So in general, I was a very curious person, and the early 20s chapter of my life was very, very travel heavy. I traveled a lot. And in those travels, I had this awakening of thinking like, I wonder what it would be like if I lived in another country. Like, how would that affect my creativity? I want to say when I was 25, I lived in New York for a couple of months because I wanted to take continuing education classes, which I'll tell you more later because it has a lore as to why I ended up in Berlin. And I knew right there and then that I was not gonna stay in Manila forever. And from that moment on, I already had it planted in my head, like I am moving, but I didn't know where. Because as much as I love being in Manila, being with my family and friends, my creative business reached a tipping point, or it plateaued, because I had already published. I mean, I'm going to say I was very fortunate because I have received so many opportunities. I basically ticked off everything from my bucket list while I was in the Philippines. But after a while, you realize, like, is this all that there is? Do you just want to keep ticking off things off your bucket list? I realized, like, there are farther things and other things that I want to really explore more with my creative business. And ultimately, I felt really limited with what else I could do in the Philippines. I think something has to be said about moving away to really, cliche, but find yourself and really be able to grapple with this new environment, new experience, and learn how to adapt from there. I mentioned earlier that I went to New York when I was 25. This was 2018. I actually didn't like it. And I ended up going to Berlin instead because at the time I was working with Faber-Castell Philippines, and I asked them, because I'm a very resourceful and opportunistic person, I asked them if they could send me to Germany from New York because I found out that Faber-Castell actually has a castle in Nuremberg. They really do have a castle and a factory, and I asked if I could be sent there to create content for them and make videos and take photos. And actually those videos are still up on my YouTube channel. And in the process, a friend had asked me if I wanted to visit Berlin. So I did visit Berlin during that duration. Before I went to Berlin, I was already looking up this idea of doing an art residency program, and I found one program that I applied to. It's paid. I have to pay for it, but it warranted me a slot to be able to visit Berlin the summer of 2019, to which I did. I spent 3 months in the lovely summer of Berlin in 2019, and I remember just walking around the streets of Berlin at the time. I was just like, wow, this is a really, really pretty city. And I'm not saying pretty in a visually like, it's beautiful. I think it has its charm. I can't really explain it to you, but that's how I felt when I was walking and spending my summer here. The art residency program was also very eye-opening for me because it was the first time ever that I didn't have to create something for social media, and I was in the trenches and deep into that front because I think that was the start of social media being more present and being more of a marketing tool, do you know what I mean? And so it was nice to be able to do that. I also thought about like business-wise, I wanted to go global in a way that I could reach the US audience. I remember my YouTube manager, Nika, was saying like, you know, Abby, 40% of your audience is from the US. So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Maybe we can add a bit of Germany there or people from Europe. So I also thought about it strategically and said, you know, it could be a good way to expand my creativity. And at the time, I haven't been teaching workshops in the US and Europe. So I also had that goal in mind and I wanted to do that and see how that would turn out. The move was very stressful. That's why it took me so long to tell you. I actually did not mention to anyone that I moved to Berlin except my patrons and my family and friends, at least for a good 3 months since I moved here. I should emphasize that I don't know if the Philippine German embassy knows about this visa because the moment I applied, they rejected me without even telling me. And the worst part was, this was the tail end of February in 2020. So the lockdown was about to happen and my documents were obviously not prioritized. It wasn't until 2021 where we got feedback around April or May. My lawyer was not happy because the Philippine German embassy declined my application without stating any reason because I had already prepared my documents. Those 7 years working in Manila really helped me get to Berlin because this was all no employer, no one vouched for me basically. I had to vouch for myself. Like, hi Germany, I would like to move to Berlin. Could you give me a visa to move here? At the time, I barely had time to actually process everything. I was just like, oh wait, I needed to submit my travel journal book deadline. I was writing it at the time. And then shut down my shop in Manila and then pack my bags and figure out the rest. I was so scared. I was also so anxious. I think what made it more scary was like this uncertainty of possibly getting rejected again in Berlin because I was already rejected once by the Philippine German embassy. I was very persistent about it. This curiosity, I feel like, has always been in my system and I never wanted to not follow that path, even if it's hard. So the first month that I moved was very scary because I felt like every day I think I woke up and asked myself why I am here. Why am I here? Like, what am I doing here? For the longest time, I mostly got by with words like bitte, genau, and ein flat white with half a milk, aka my favorite drink. But I know that one meaningful way to connect with the culture here is through the language. And as someone who has grown up speaking 3 languages, Filipino, English, and Mandarin, it'll be no surprise that I'd want to brush up on my German as well now that I've been living for a while in this city. Which is why I'd like to thank Rosetta Stone for partnering on today's video. Rosetta Stone is an immersive language learning platform designed to mirror the way you learn your first language through real-world context, not just memorization. Whether you learn best by listening, watching, or doing, Rosetta Stone adapts to your learning style with lessons built around practical conversations and real-life situations. I've been using Rosetta Stone to learn German and it's been a game changer for my language learning process. When I first moved here, a lot of things really felt like guesswork, you know, filling out application forms, reading letters, organizing documents, and doing basically all this life admin all in German through translator apps. Now I feel more confident and more able to write in German and speak in German and try my best at understanding these words without having to figure out what they mean. What I love about Rosetta Stone is it doesn't feel like traditional language learning. Their dynamic immersion method helps you learn intuitively, making connections between images, words, and meaning, just like how I picked up a language as a kid. And the short lessons make it easy to build into my routine. Sometimes I squeeze in a 10-minute session during my lunch break. It may be a small part of my day, but it makes a big difference and it keeps up with the habit of learning something new every day.
Die Post.
Die Post.
Das Hotel.
Das Hotel. Die Familie ist zu Hause. Die Kinder sind in der Schule.
Das Spielzeug steht neben seinem rechten Fuß.
Das Spielzeug steht neben seinem rechten Fuß. Ready to finally cross language learning off your goals list? With the exclusive link in my description, you can get over 60% off a lifetime subscription of Rosetta Stone. That's unlimited access to all 25 languages forever. One payment, lifetime access. Start your language learning journey today. So life admin was definitely overwhelming. As I mentioned, a lot of things are in German. Everything here is sent by post, which I'm super not used to. And if your name is not on the bell, you will not receive your letter. So I remember I didn't receive my debit card until I followed up and I was like, why didn't you send it to me? Oh, your name's not on the box. Even as complex things as figuring out how to pay taxes, doing bookkeeping. I do a lot of bookkeeping. I also asked a lot of help from my tax advisor. I had to explain to him the type of job I had because it wasn't conventional for the tax office. I also obviously had to find apartments and constantly move. I've moved 5 times in the past 3 years. So much so that in the process of finding apartments 2023, I was very, very close to going home because I was like, you know what? Germany wants to give me an artist visa but doesn't even want to give me an apartment. And this is a lot of it being because I had to earn more money financially. And I wasn't used to this change because in the Philippines, obviously I lived under my mom's roof. I had my own studio that I didn't have to pay for. So a lot of it was really like changing and unlearning old ways and being able to persist and to keep going. A lot of things that happened, like I got into an accident, I needed to figure out insurance. Luckily, artists are subsidized here by the government, so I don't have to pay that much insurance. And I remember thinking a lot of things are still very uncertain for me. There's no anything that's holding me here, you know, like I don't have a partner here, I don't have a job that's tied to Berlin, so I could leave any time that I want. So having this conscious choice to stay was so difficult until maybe the tail end of 2024 where I was like, wait, I think I would like to stay here for a couple more years. But you know, with the bad days, there are also good days. I can't even tell you how many great days I've had and great moments here. They're not even very grand things. It's even simple things as like being able to sit on a train and an hour later you're in Potsdam. And that's such a lovely thing to know. Or being able to hang out with friends at the park and sitting in the park and actually having access to nature literally like 500 meters away from me. Every day I tell myself when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I am exactly where I needed to be. Sometimes I always feel so unsure because I do a very silly job. You know, I have friends here. All of my friends here have corporate jobs. I maybe have 1 or 2 who are also working freelance like me. And sometimes I'm like, they're working in an office and I'm just like sitting here on my desk, talking to you in front of a camera, flipping through my journal, showing you new stickers and fountain pens that I got. And sometimes I'm like, wait, this is actually a job that is useful, and I'm pretty sure 22-year-old Abby would be very happy to see 32-year-old Abby thriving in Berlin. I also feel very proud for working so hard to get to this point. You know, financially, I will admit that I haven't really had any problems growing up, and here I felt a little unsure because I had more bills to pay, and the income bracket of an artist here was way higher than I thought it was. So I was constantly striving to that point. I mentioned earlier that a lot of my audience from YouTube is from the US. That allowed me to travel to the US, teach workshops, which I do now every year. I've been part of really amazing events like Stationery Fest and the SF Pen Show. And also, I've been able to teach workshops here in Berlin. I have made a lot of friends in the past 3 years. A lot of the friendships stayed. A lot of the friendships, you know, dissolved, but that's how life is. It's great being here because it's such a big city. I could just be a normal 32-year-old anonymous human here in Berlin. There was a moment before the pandemic that I was cancelled in the Philippines. I never talked about this publicly, but actually that was one of the reasons why I decided to leave. That took a toll on my mental health and how I decided to continue forward. I did feel like it was still a mission for me to share all of this with you. And I think something has to be said about Berlin being able to hold space for me, to be able to create, to be able to explore, to be able to navigate these new versions of me. And I feel super at home in that regard. It's not even a place, it's really more of a feeling. And obviously, the view of the city definitely changed now that I'm more than 3 years in and I continue to live here. Last but not the least, I want to share some tips and advice on moving. I don't know if I want to say that you should move. It really depends on the circumstance and the season of life you're in. I don't know if I'm staying in Berlin forever. When I went home, everyone just asked me which European city I'm moving to next. And I just want to preface this by saying, like, Berlin is not just like I'm spending 6 months here, you know? I'm moving to another European city. No, it's really the second home I have right now. And I think my third home is California, where most of my friends are, or New York, where most of my other friends are and family are. But I think there's something to be said about moving away and really facing this head on. It takes a lot of guts and it takes a lot of perseverance. And one tip that I will tell you that has helped me get through everything is to be extra resourceful. Ask everyone you know, ask questions, don't be afraid to reach out, because that's how I found all of the resources I have. I also will link some requirements down below if you're interested to know more about the artist visa. Please don't ask me questions because I am not an official member of the Berlin government and I don't want to give false answers. I only followed rules that I guess were applicable to me, but I will link it down below in case you're curious about the visa that I have. And I think Berlin has an exact website to point to you on the requirements and things like that. And lastly, I want to say take things step by step. During my first few years here, I was really very impatient and I ultimately told myself, oh no, I won't be able to do this, I won't be able to do that. And I think that kind of limited mindset really diminishes a lot of my own confidence, which I am very aware of. But instead, take it step by step, give yourself some grace, and talk to people about it. I think it helps if you have people who understand the context of what it is to be moving. A lot of my friends here are actually Filipinos, which makes kind of sense, you know? But a lot of my friends are also immigrants, and it's always nice to debrief about these topics and openly share. This really helped me understand how this context applies to different cultures, and it's always a good excuse to get to know people, know their story, figure out your place in all of this, and to tell yourself to never give up. I mean, you can always give up if you know that the timing is off or things are not going right, but I need to tell you that for the past 10 years, I took on this super unconventional path. I always worry about this because the unconventional path that I've taken is something I carved out for my own, and I don't know that it's all going to go great because no one's gonna tell me that. I just have to see it through and live through it, and I am just hoping for the best. I am just working really hard still and grinding and getting all the work done and showing up. And I think for now, that is what's most important. Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and thank you so much again to Rosetta Stone for partnering with me on today's video. I'd love to know more about your thoughts in the comments. Let's continue the conversation. I hope you have a lovely rest of your weekend and April. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you soon. Bye!